Did you try to get into Warhammer 40,000's lore, but found yourself completely overwhelmed? Of course you did. There are hundreds of novels in 40k's Black Library, so how are you supposed to pick your first? This happens to everyone. You are normal. You're perfectly normal. There are 3 commonly recommended entry points to the universe. I'm going to give you a little bit about each of them and why I actually think you should maybe stay away from one of them for right now. First up is the Caiaphas Cain series by Sandy Mitchell, some of my personal favorites. These books are a bit lighter than most of the Black Library. In fact, they're probably the closest thing to like an action comedy that you're going to find in all of 40k. Some of the humor comes from these clever literary techniques. The stories are told through the Cain Archive, which is a set of autobiographical memoirs detailing the adventures of the late great commissar Caiaphas Cain, fabled and lauded hero of the Empire. But instead of being the stories of a fearless leader, you actually discover through Cain's first-person retelling that he was a coward who bumbled into his most famous victories, usually while retreating. It's a fun perspective. Why start here? 1, they are thoroughly entertaining. These are the kind of books that you read with a smile on your face. Cain is a coward and a scoundrel, but you just can't help rooting for him. He's so endearing. Also, as a commissar, Cain has a unique role that affords him a privileged point of view. Arguably, because everything in 40k is arguable, the reader gets to see more of the Imperium and how it works than you would in your standard Space Marine novel. Finally, the series starts with a short story that you can easily finish in one sitting, so you can just give it a chance. And if you don't care for it, bail. Why wouldn't you start here? I guess you could make the argument that it's basically a comedy, so maybe it's not the most representative place to start, especially if you think you're going to be more attracted to the grit and the violence and the gore. If that's you, this probably shouldn't be your first 40k story. A much better choice would be number 2 on my list. If you want something closer to James Bond or Sherlock Holmes in space, then you want the Eisenhorn series by Dan Abnett, and these are some of the most recommended novels in all of 40k, and for good reason. There aren't many writers in the canon that elevate the universe like Abnett. The series follows Gregor Eisenhorn, an inquisitor. His job isn't to actually fight the wars, but to hunt the enemy hiding within the army itself, the heretics, mutants, and demons. He's kind of like a spy hunter with psychic abilities and a sick fashion sense, and they're suitably dark stories with a surprising amount of depth, a slow burn about corruption that asks how many bad things can a good man do, far better than any tabletop IP has any need to be. So why should you read it? Well, Abnett is one of the great writers of 40k, so you might as well start off strong. Second, the Inquisitors have an even more privileged point of view than the Commissars. Eisenhorn is privy to some really high-level drama and can also team up with pretty much anyone in the entire Imperium. Since he interacts with everyone from guard grunts to demon hosts, his POV is a good intro to the scope of the universe. Finally, it's a rich series with a lot of content. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as the Eisenhorn trilogy, but there are actually way more books that keep the story going should you fall in love with the characters. Why shouldn't you read it? It's just more to bite off right at the beginning. The first story in the series is a full-length novel. As a criticism, that's pretty weak, though. I highly recommend Gregor and Friends. Which brings us to the Horus Heresy. You're going to see this on every must-read list, and some purebred psychos will tell you that it's the most logical place to start your Warhammer 40,000 lore journey. That might make sense to you. It is an epic Shakespearean tragedy. It has incredible themes of brotherhood and hubris, and the writing is superlative. However, I am recommending you do not start here. Why? Well, for one thing, the Horus Heresy is a prequel. It's the story of how the galaxy broke, so if you start with the heresy, you won't understand why the setting is tragic in the first place, because you haven't seen the decay. But far more important than that, it's over 60 books long, full-length novels. And I know that no one really reads all of it. Most people just sort of like read the beginning and the end and follow 1 or 2 factions through the middle, but still, there is no need to bite off that much on day 1. So to sum up, if you want to enjoy your start in 40k, Cain is good for a laugh, Eisenhorn is good for a mystery or thriller, and maybe save the heresy for later.